rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. When you catch it, you catch it. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. We go round. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Yeah, let's go. We go. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Yeah, let's go. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Come on, come on, come on. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Oh, we got to swing. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. I might give it over to you soon. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. It's usually slow, but there you go. Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Language is what? Language is rhythm. And rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. I missed a few more. Language is rhythm. And rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Oh, come on, we got it. Language is rhythm. And rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. Now I'm going to leave it to you.
Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song.
Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song.
I know we're few, but let's be many. Language is rhythm, but rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song. A few more times, last time.
Language is rhythm. Rhythm is language, like music, like poetry, like song.
I think last time, here we go.
Language is rhythm.
And rhythm is
Language, like music, like poetry, like song.
In the music and in the poetry, there is always the story. And the story is once upon a time. My name is Troop, and you're going to hear a story from myself. You're going to hear a story from lovely Sandra here, and Owen, our man on the bass, going to support us and play some music. But I will share with you a story. There is a few traditional openings. If I say to you crick, what would you say?
Crack.
Ah. So I say crick and you say crack. Crick,
Crack.
crick.
Crack.
In Haiti, they say honor, and you would say respect. Honor,
Respect.
honor,
Respect.
respect.
Honor.
Usually when you go into somebody's house, you know, like in Guyana where my parents come from and Sandra, when you're outside, you say before you enter, inside, and the person inside, they would say, outside, and then you would say, it's me, and they would say, who is me? And you say, it's me, too, and it's, too, come on, come in. That's, you know, that's the repertoire in the culture. There was a man. His name was Mr. Kadu. What was his name? Mr. Kadu. Oh, let me tell you about this man. Mr. Kadu was a very, 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 very rich man. Mr. Kadu had one set of camel, one set of cow, one set of goat. Mr. Kadu had a lot of grain, a lot of corn, and Mr. Kadu did not know what to do with his surplus. Mr. Kadu thought to himself, I'm a rich man, I have more than I need. What can I do with all of this? Wasting away, spider and mice eating it, yamming it up. What I gonna do? Mr. Kadu he called to his estate 3 wise persons. Mr. Kadu asked them, I'm a rich man. I have a granary there, full, overflowing. Don't know what to do. How can you advise a man like myself? And the 3 wise ones, they said, Mr. Kadu, you know what we can do. Why don't you give some of your surplus food and corn to the needy and those who do not have? And Mr. Kadu thought to himself, nah, I don't like the idea. Mr. Kadu, another one said, you know what we can do? We can throw one big party, boy. Aye, everybody gonna eat, everybody gonna drink, and all will remember your name. Mr. Kadu thought, nah, I don't like that one as well, you know. I don't like that one. They said, Mr. Kadu, you know, you got so much surplus. Surely you can think of something that you can do with your surplus. And Mr. Kadu said, the problem is this. When you're as rich as one like myself.
May I have your attention, please? This building and library will be closed for public in 5 minutes. I repeat, building and library will be closed for public in 5 minutes. Thank you.
If I had the money to buy myself a good intercom, I would have bought one. But I didn't. And so, you know, I want to see my wealth before me. I would like to touch my wealth. I want to see that my wealth is there and I have my wealth in place. So, go away and let me think about the situation. Mr. Kadu thought to himself hard. How can I have what is mine in front of me to see? Next day, Mr. Kadu, he called the 3 wise ones once again to his estate, and he told them, I want you to go down to the village, and I want you to get at least 12 unmarried young girls to come to my estate. I will pay them handsomely, no problem, and no funny business gonna go on. I will pay them good and handsomely. But let the 12 girls come to my estate, and I will tell them what to do. The 3 wise ones, they look at Mr. Kadu and they thought, they went down to the village, they got the 12 girls. The 12 girls, they came back to the estate of Mr. Kadu. Mr. Kadu said to them, I wish for you to take my corn and grind my corn into flour. All of them line up there with their grinding stones and with their pestle and their mortar, and they throw in the corn and they beat the corn, and they throw in the corn and they beat the corn, and they grind the corn and they grind the corn, and all the corn in the granaries of Mr. Kadu came lower and lower and lower, until the mountain of flour grew higher and higher and higher and higher. And then Mr. Kadu said, all my surplus of corn has been ground into flour. All you 12 girls, take your calabash, go down by the riverside, draw the water, bring the water, and turn this flour into dough. All the wise ones, they sit there and they said, the 12 young women, they went down by the waters as they drew up their calabash. They came back, they threw inside the flour, they kneaded it, they turned it, they turned it, they kneaded it, they kneaded it, they turned it, until they had a mass of dough. Mr. Kadu paid the 12 handsomely for their service. Then Mr. Kadu asked the 3 wise elders, go back down to the village and bring for me 12 young boys. All already have been through their initiation. Bring them to my estate and I will pay them handsomely and give them the job. The 3 elders looked at Mr. Kadu and they said, the 3 young men, the 12 young men, they went to the estate of Mr. Kadu. And Mr. Kadu said, I want you to take all of this dough and make bricks of bread and bread of bricks. What did he want? He wanted bricks of bread and breads of bricks. So they took one piece of dough and they put it in a jig, you know. When I used to do engineering, you make a tin plate. And they put the dough in, pam, and they level it off, pam, and they throw it to one side, they turn it over, you have a brick, which is a loaf of bread. And they take another piece of dough, they throw it inside, they level it off, bam, and before you know it, they start to churn out bricks of bread and breads of bricks and bricks of bread and breads of brick until the dough got lower and lower and lower. When he had a whole mass of bricks of bread and bread of bricks, he asked the 12 young boys to take what was left of the dough, and that would be the mortar. Then they would place one dough bread, and they would place another one on the top with a little bit of mortar inside. And so they started to build up a wall all around the estate of Mr. Kadu. And it took a long time for all of that bread to be built. And Mr. Kadu, when it was done, he was very happy. Honor! That's the call and response. Honor! Honor! Crick! Mr. Kadu, when his wall was done, he would sit on his wall. All the people from the village, they came to the estate of Mr. Kadu to look at this wonder. A man who has built a wall around his estate made of bread, bricks of bread and bread of bricks. People came from villages, all near and far. They came to look at the marvel. A rich man who built a wall of bread around his estate. The news stretched far and wide throughout Africa. People came north, south, east, west to see the estate of Mr. Kadu. Mr. Kadu sat on his wall and looked down at the people. The people, they looked up at Mr. Kadu and they said, Mr. Kadu, you're a very rich man. Oh my gosh, Mr. Kadu, you're so rich you can build a wall of bread around your estate. Oh, Mr. Kadu, you are so rich, give us advice, because he was rich. And Mr. Kadu sat on his wall, looked down at them and said, yeah, I'm a rich man. I can give you good advice, of course, because I'm rich. You know what you can do this, and you know what you can do that, and you know what you can do this and the other. And so this is how Mr. Kadu lived his life. But life can't be sweet all the time. There was a season when the corn was blighted. It was diseased. The corn throughout all the farms were blighted and diseased. So the people of the village, they went to Mr. Kadu and they said, Mr. Kadu, what can we do? Because the corn is blighted. And Mr. Kadu from his wall looked down at them and said, I am in the same situation as yourself. My corn has been blighted. I tell you, those of you who have corn, why don't you half, plant half, and eat half, and then maybe when the next season comes, you will be able to have a harvest of corn and your life will be better. I'm in the same situation. The people, they looked at Mr. Kadu and they said, Mr. Kadu, no good will come of you. The people, they went away. And when they went away, they halved their corn, they planted half and they ate half. But then the next season was very bad and it did not grow. And it was still blighted and the ground was dry. And the underground running water well was dry. So they found themselves once again at the feet of Mr. Kadu. Mr. Kadu, they said, what shall we do? By your advice, we halved our corn. We have ate the half. We planted the half. And the season, they're all blighted and diseased. Mr. Kadu sat there. He said, a whole year has passed and I am in the same situation as you. I have my little bit of surplus and now I don't have anything left to eat. But tell me, some of you have goats, some of you have sheep. Yes, in the villages, some of us have goats, some of us have sheep. Okay. Half your goat and half your sheep. Sell the half and goat and sheep to the market, buy corn. And the other half of goat and sheep, you can kill and you can eat until the season comes again that you will plant and you will have your harvest. You will buy back your goat and sheep. Everything will be fine. The people said, Mr. Kadu, no good will come of you, Mr. Kadu. The people, they went back home to their villages. They took their cattle, their sheep, their goat. They halved their cattle, their sheep, their goat. They bought more grain and more corn with half. They brought it home. And through the season, they slaughtered and killed and ate what they had left. And when the season rotated again, the corn which they planted, which they bought, was blighted and diseased. Now they came to Mr. Kadu weak, thin, disheveled. They looked up to Mr. Kadu and said, Mr. Kadu, by your advice, we have halved our goats and our sheep, we have bought our corn, and now the harvest has been blighted and we have no sheep, we have no goats. What are we to eat? Mr. Kadu looked at them and said, I am in the same situation as yourselves. I've halved all my goats, I've halved all my sheep, I've halved all my cows. I hardly don't have anything else to eat as well, you know. And they said to Mr. Kadu, Mr. Kadu, you're a rich man. By your advice, we have done. And now what are we to do? Mr. Kadu said, I'm in the same situation as you know. I ain't got nothing to eat. What do you want me to do? And they said to Mr. Kadu, we cannot stay in this village any longer. We are going to leave this village and we are going to find somewhere else in the world to live. Mr. Kadu sat on his wall and he watched as the people, they made a procession out of the village and they started to walk and they walked and they walked until they became a dot and were gone. Mr. Kadu was left in the village all by himself, he and his one daughter that he had, and one donkey left. Now listen, you have to understand many years have passed, many years. Mr. Kadu sat there on his wall and thought to himself, through all these past seasons, he has not had anything to eat. And this wall which he sits on, made out of bricks of bread, and bread of bricks, is an effrontery to the face of the people. But when Mr. Kadu's daughter came to him and said, Daddy, I'm hungry. Aye, that burned Mr. Kadu's ears. One thing no parent wants to hear their child say is that they are hungry. Mr. Kadu looked at his daughter and said, my daughter, technically, the wall is bread. Fair enough, there's things living in it. There's things crawling in it. The weather's beating it. Fair enough, it's hard like concrete. I understand, but technically, my love, it still is bread. The daughter said, Father, we cannot eat this wall. It's crawling with all maggots and kind of things. But he said, life and living is more than death. Try. And he broke off a bit of the hard, crumbly, hard bread, and she put it in her mouth. She hardly had no saliva, but eventually she started to make it soft, and she swallowed. Mr. Kadu broke off some of the bread. He put it in his mouth and tried as he would try. He started to make it soft, and before you know it, he swallowed. And as the season and as the years passed by, Mr. Kadu and his daughter, they ate that whole wall of bread and bricks of bread and bread of bricks, until it was down to the ground, and all there was dust left, only for the place for the guinea fowl to eat and have his bath. Then Mr. Kadu's daughter came to him again. Daddy, Papa, I'm hungry. Ah, said Mr. Kadu, I did not realize I have caused such a sin, such an effrontery. I had so much, and I made a bread of bricks and bricks of bread. I wanted to see my wealth. I wanted to touch my wealth. I wanted to have it in front of my eyes, but I've done a wrong thing. My daughter, if we are to survive, then we must leave this place. Oh, says the daughter, how are we to travel? By the donkey, he said, by the donkey. We will go to Ghana. In Ghana, there is a very rich man, a very honorable man, and I'm sure he will take care of us. So Mr. Kadu and his daughter, they got on the donkey and they started to make their way to Ghana. When they got to Ghana, they reached a very rich man. He sat there and he offered them hospitality to sit with him, and he gave them something to drink, and he gave them something to eat. And Mr. Kadu, his muscles had to remember how to swallow. The journey as a refugee was long and tiresome. Mr. Kadu was very, very tired indeed. His daughter was very weak. Mr. Kadu said to the man, you are a very nice man, you are a very kind man to take me into your homestead. Ah, said the rich man from Ghana, tell me something. Where you traveled from? Ah, said Mr. Kadu, I've come all the way from Tindili. Tindili? Hey, said the man. Tindili is a very far, far, far place for you to travel to. Hey, said the man. I heard that there was a man in Tindili who was very rich. Mr. Kadu bowed his head and said, yes, there was a man who was very rich. Ah, said the man from Ghana, I heard this man was so rich that he had so much cattle, he had so much corn. He built a wall around his estate, made of bricks of bread and bread of bricks. Mr. Kadu with bowed head said, yes, there was such a man. And the man from Ghana said, I tell you something, I'm a rich man. I have lots, but I will never waste my riches like that. I will not show my riches in the face and the effrontery of people who are starving and hungry. And Mr. Kadu with bowed head said, yes, it's wrong for one to do such a thing. Ah, said the man from Ghana, but tell me something. You seem to know a lot about this man, Mr. Kadu. Maybe you work for him in his estate. And Mr. Kadu lifted his head and said, the man of which you speak of sits before you. I am Mr. Kadu. Whoa, to the man from Ghana. Hey, you are Mr. Kadu? Hey, tell me something. How could you be so foolish? Mr. Kadu said, I tell you something. If I can redeem myself, if I can have a bag of corn, if I can take my corn back to my land, I will plant my corn and my generation will grow again. And the man from Ghana said, I will give you a bag of corn. Use it wisely. Mr. Kadu thanked the man from Ghana. He thanked him handsomely. And before you know it, Mr. Kadu, he put that big bag of corn on the back of his donkey and started to make his way back to Tindiri. But the journey was long. I'm glad you love it. The journey was long. And the first morning, Mr. Kadu asked his daughter, did we have breakfast? The daughter said no. Mr. Kadu put his hands inside the bag. He put the unground corn into his mouth and he started to eat. The daughter said, Father, that is for planting. But Mr. Kadu said, I haven't had breakfast yet. When midday came, Mr. Kadu said to his daughter, have we had lunch yet? The daughter said, Father, no. Father put his hands inside the bag of corn. He put the corn inside his mouth and the daughter said, Father, that is for planting. And Mr. Kadu said, but we haven't had lunch yet. When dinner time come, Mr. Kadu put his hand inside the bag again. He put the corn all inside his mouth and the daughter said, Father, that's for the planting. And Mr. Kadu said, we haven't had dinner yet. This went on. One day into another day. Into another day. Until the bag of corn was finished. Mr. Kadu reached Tindeli with no corn to plant. Mr. Kadu's belly was swollen. Mr. Kadu had to take to his bed. Mr. Kadu, he turned this way. Mr. Kadu, he turned that way. And before you know it, sad to say, Mr. Kadu died. His daughter wept and wept and wept and wept. She did not even have the strength to put him properly in the ground. What she dug was a shallow grave. She put the stones on top and she left him there to rest. Then she said, I go out into the world. She on her donkey, she rode to some other state within Africa. She made for herself a life. She found for herself a husband and she made for herself a family. And when she had her children all around her, her children will be there and they will be fighting, they will be arguing about who's got what and who's got this and who's got more and who's got less. And she would always stop them and say, do not build a wall of flour around you. Hey. And the children as they grow up, they always wondered what was this prophetic words, what was these parables. Don't build a wall of flour around you. And as the children got sense, they asked their mother, Mother, what is this saying which you usually say? And the mother told them all the story of which I have just told you. And the children, being big adults, decided to retrace their heritage all the way back to the village in Tindiri. And when they reached that village, they realized that their grandfather had left them a heritage of gold. Gold, gold, gold that spread out along the farm. heads of corn which shone like gold up in the sun. They were all heads of corn because when their grandfather died, the corn sprouted from his stomach and grew up and out into the land and spread itself out until the farmland was full of gold. The children, they lived a good life. Mr. Kadu was remembered, and the children always would say, don't build a wall of bread around you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you Sandra Edgar.
The stories I tell are all true, because I have that kind of faith. I only tell the truth. There was once a grain of sand, a tiny grain of sand, who lived by herself on the beach. She had no friends. Nobody ever came to see her. She was very, very sad. Now, my stories are full of audience participation. So when I say ah, I want you to say ah. Poor grain of sand. I want you to weep some tears. Weep some tears. Come on, weep some tears. Poor grain of sand. No friends, nobody to come to see her. It was a terrible. I want you to really be choked up, choked up, choked up. Well, on this day, the grain of sand was feeling very sorry for herself when the sea came whooshing in. Can you give me a whoosh, please? Whoosh. And stopped and said, grain of sand, you see where you're standing now? I want to stand there. And the grain of sand said, this spot, you want to stand here? Are you sure? Yes, said the sea. Now push off. And so the grain of sand was pushed onto the other side, and then the sea said, no, no, no. I like where you're standing now. Come on, move on you go, on you go, on you go, go, go. And that's how it was with the grain of sand. Being pushed to and fro, forward to. Oh my goodness, it was so sad. Give me an arm. Poor grain of sand. Well, the wind came by one day, and the wind said to the grain of sand, why do you put up with it? Put up with what? Said the grain of sand. Put up with him. You're talking about the sea. Yeah. I can't do nothing about him. He's so big and I'm so small. But what about your friends? What friends? The other grains of sand on the other side of the hill. The other grains of sand, other side of the hill. She looked at the hill and thought, it's too high. How am I going to get there? I'm the wind, said the wind. Hop on my back, I'll take it. So the grain of sand hops up onto the wind's back. And the wind, I know we have COVID and stuff, but at this point, I want you to huff and puff the thing. Huff and puff, huff and puff, huff and puff, huff and puff, runs the grain of sand. And sure enough, she's carried on the wind, back and there. She saw not one, not two, but hundreds of thousands of grains of sand. She landed. They looked at her. She looked at them. Hello, hello. Not seen you before. What you doing? What you doing? Ah, we're just about to have a party. You need to be with us. I was on the other side. Oh, you don't need to be on the side. Be with us and let's all party. So they all began to party. Party up. Oh my goodness, she was having such a great time. It was wonderful. But then she stopped. She began to shaking sugar. What's wrong? Said her new friend. It's about that time. Time for what? That's the time. This is the time he come. Ooh, the scene. Ah, yeah, we know him. He always pushing and shoving and pushing, making himself laugh and thinking himself hit. Well, shall we run away and hide? Run away and hide? They said we don't hide nowhere. We stay just where we are. You're not afraid? 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 We're not afraid of nothing. You're not afraid of him? No. Because we know that if we stand together, we are strong. She looked at her new friends and she thought, hey, if they can be so strong, I can be strong too. So she stood her ground. The sun went down, the moon came up, and the sea came whooshing in and stopped. Oh, this is where you be. Oh, I thought you were on the other side. Oh no, you haven't met this lot. They're safety. They're always giving you cheek. Now come with me, he said to the grain of sand. But you know what she said? No. She stood her ground. And her friend stood their ground. She wasn't going nowhere. The sea got really cross. The sea got bigger and bigger. They said, look, I'm going to really get you. I don't care. I'm really going to get you. I don't care. I'm going to get you for good. Middle business. Bring it down. And so the grain of sand stood her ground. And the sea came whooshing in and pushed and jumped and pushed. All night it fought to take back the land. All night. But to no avail. For in the morning, when the sun came up from the wind had gone down, the grains of sand was still on the beach. Wet, soggy, knackered, but standing strong. As for the sea, it was spent. It went out. But it turned around and said, hey, you might think you won the battle, but I'll be back and I will win the war. And from that day to this, you know that the sand has been trying to hold back the sea. The sea has been trying to take the land. Now you know that is the tide going in, come now, showing in, come out. I know that as the everlasting battle of the sand versus the sea. And running sand, you know that story. Great sand told you, of course. And now I tell you,
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for a little bit. We have some water and some juice, and then we'll come back for one or two more stories, and then we'll bid you adieu.
One fine morning, when my life is over, I will fly away home. Take me home. I want to go home. Let's go home. Come on, let's go. We're going home. Home. That's a song she would have sung as she stole onto the plantation under the dead of night. That is a song she would have sung to call those who were going with her to come. Who am I talking about? Harriet, of course. Miss Harriet Tubman. Conductor on the Underground Railroad. Harriet had many a tale. Harriet had many a story. At under 5 foot, she was a giant. Her voice would lead people. She would sing the song, and they would come. And on they would go onto the pond. She would lead them from the south to the north, following the North Star as her father had taught her, following the path, following the North Star, wading in water, across muddy fields. She would lead them. Some would not want to go. Some would be reluctant to run because it was dark. They were strange sounds. But she would make them. Sometimes she would put a gun to them and tell you gonna go. Between you, me, and her, she had no bullets in that gun. But such was her way, she could persuade them because they couldn't turn back. If they turned back, people would know the path. Everything was done in chestnut. For she was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. She didn't start off like that. She was a small child who, young man, how old are you? 11. 11. Yes, you're a strong young buck. Yes, you would have been part of that railroad train as she ran, and she would take you with her because you were coming and be free, because she wanted her people to be free. Harriet Tubman, what a woman she was. Some say she freed over 300 people. It wasn't so. Maybe about 70 to 100, but that was enough because, you know, there was no sat-nav in those times. All she had was that North Star, but that was enough to take her to freedom. For me, Harriet Tubman was a great woman. I discovered Harriet about your age, when I was about 10, 11, and I thought she was a dynamic woman. Besides my mother and my aunt and my godmother, this was a woman I could read about in books that I could identify with in a way. Obviously I wasn't an enslaved person, but her plight, her stubbornness, her will to succeed, despite the fact that sometimes she would
Drop C.
She would fall asleep, the result of an iron weight being hit on her head, a result that nearly killed her, but her mother brought her back, and from that time she was fall asleep, and sometimes she would fall asleep as she ran. Can you imagine being on the run with her, and suddenly Harriet would just fall down, and they didn't know what to do. They would gather around her and pray and hope that the patrollers wouldn't be out with their dogs. And she would wake up and continue. Harriet never lost a passenger. She never got caught, in fact. Even though a massive reward was put on her head. Nobody ever betrayed her. Nobody ever gave her up, and they could never find her. And she was a remarkable woman. And I, about Harriet Tubman, much to my delighted joy, I think it's purple. I had nothing to do with it, but it is a book for children, but I had people who are 80 plus reading it and have delighted in it. And I know I had you have it. And we've got Jasmine here, she has got books on sale. Jasmine, she's brought it all the way from South London, so the books is really sale. To me, Harriet Tubman is inspiration. To me, she typifies us as people who have stuck down with so much drama, but despite everything, she rose and she still rises and she does not. She's a wonderful woman. I'll just read the first bit. On one moonless night in 1849, a runaway slave ran swiftly toward the Choctaw River. Up above, the North Star shone brightly in the sky, guiding her on. She moved quickly and carefully, keeping close to the shadows. The runaway was on constant alert, wary of any sudden movement or sound. She occasionally touched a tree trunk, her fingers brushing the moss to check her direction. Her father had taught her that moss mainly grew on the north side of the tree. Owls hooted, bats flicked back and forth, crickets flipped their wings, and flies zigzagged across the path, as if this was any other night in Maryland, England, but it wasn't any other. This was the night Harriet escaped from slavery. Though she didn't know it yet, this would be the first of many dangerous trips. Her first trip, she tried to get away, but her brothers were with her and they were afraid. But on this trip, she decided she needed to go by herself. At that point, she was married to John Tubman. He didn't want to go, and so she went. And she did it herself. She walked, and she was helped by a Quaker woman, and the different people helped her along the way. She was able to get away to Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, where she met the wonderful William Still. Those of you who are happy, yeah, a lot of that, very Hollywood in some parts, but a lot of it was accurate and very true. And I think simply the marvelous job of stealing the spirit of Harriet Tubman. When my book does talk about this, and it talks about different rebellions that took place, because as we know, slavery, people just didn't always accept slavery. They did fight back. They fought back either running away or different revolutions, and the book goes through that. And it looks at the tenacity that Harriet did. And she did rescue a lot of people. And one of the people she did rescue, and I have to say, was one of my favourite, were her own parents. It was one of her last rescues. Her parents were very old at that time, very old, they're probably in their 80s. They couldn't wade through water or walk or do any of that, but she carried them, she made a naked cart, borrowed a horse from a nearby field, and she rode them to sea. So when they passed through. And to me, that was such a great tribute. Because I dedicate everything I do to my beloved parents who I lost in 2016. They came from Guyana, as Quick said, they came from Guyana, they came, as many of our parents did, for 5 years and stayed 60 plus. My mother passed here, my dad was in Guyana, and he passed away. But I dedicate everything I do, I now do to them, because they gave me such a grounding and such an education of sorts. I have a friend here, a friend from school, my school name, she's just marvelous, she's just fantastic. Her style son, and we know that Edith wasn't always the greatest sword, but I think it turned out great people. Absolutely, absolutely, and that's exactly what I'm going to say. It did, and we did have some marvelous teachers. Like Neville Cornwall, one of my all-time greats. He did have some marvelous teachers. I don't know if anybody saw that Adele. Sorry, I'm vivid now. The Adele thing the other day when they brought out that teacher, and it was a black woman. Did you? Oh my God! I can't watch it. But that woke me up. That woke me up to bits, and that's how it was. We did have, and there's not many black teachers. Adele was so lucky to have that woman, and she was only in Adele's life for a short time, but see the impact it made, and that's what great teachers do. I know Helena is a great teacher, great teacher. And Harriet was a great teacher. And I know my parents in their infinite wisdom were great teachers. And I'm sure all the rest. So yeah, Harriet something. If you do have books that you have now, yeah, 6 or 6 items. If you do, then please see Jasmine.
Jasmine.
It's a purple pen. One of my favourite stories, because I'm a storyteller, I insisted that there's a story. And the story I have in there is the people who fly. And I'm not actually going to tell it, I'm going to tell it. People who fly is one of my favourite stories. There's a wonderful, was an African-American storyteller called Junior Hamilton, and she tells the story, she wrote the story down, it's a beautiful story. And I insisted with my daughter that I wanted a story, and they let me have it. It has been cut down a lot, but the baby is enjoyable. But if you want to read it longer, check out Junior Hamilton. I know we had it in Southern Libraries. I hope it's still there in the libraries. And we maybe have it here in Camden Libraries. It's a beautiful book, the teaching spoken, beautiful illustrations. It's still available right now. But I'm going to tell you a story. So if I say crick, you say crick, crick. I'm going to tell you a nut. Oh, you know a nut? Hey, half man, half spider. He's always had a bad impression. Everybody thinks he's too greedy, he's too naughty, he's too this and he's too that. But a Nazi is a survivor. That's what a Nazi does. The stories came from Africa with the people. The people weren't supposed to have their language, their tongue, their culture, their heritage, anything. But a Nazi survived. And a Nazi survived with all the time. He weaves that spider's web, and we are. And a Nazi will appear in different cultures throughout the world. Different cultures, the trickster. Every culture has a culture. Even here in Britain, the Jack's house, Jack the Giant, is a trickster. So let's get back to the Nazi. Great! Oh, they're listening! And Nancy was hungry. And I was always hungry. And he was hungry because there was a great hunger in the land. There was nothing to eat, and so Nancy was sad, oh, what was he going to do? Nobody had food, he went here and there, nobody had anything to eat. But then his cousin came visiting, and he looked at his cousin and said, how come you look so good and we all look so bad? But go on. You see, his cousin had a secret. When his cousin left, and Nancy decided to follow him. And Nancy thought, what's he going this way? It's not his way home. Why are you going to the river? What's he stopped by that tree? What's he doing? And he looked, and then he seen his cousin pull out a pot, placed it down, and through the pot his cousin said these words, boil, hot, boil. Well, the strangest thing happened. No fire was lit, no butter or oil put in that pot, but the pot began to bubble and boil. And the pot began to boil. Some nice smells began to come out of that pot, and then the cousin began to eat and eat and eat. It's a magic cooking pot. How come his cousin got that magic cooking pot? And he saw his cousin eat and his belly was full and he pushed the pot away. Now at this point, I want to ask, what are some of your favourite foods? If you had a magic cooking pot, what would you take out of the pot? Yes, burgers. Burgers. Lovely, yes. Oh, hey. Do you know how to make it? No. Oh. You better learn. Because if you ever in a place like when I went to university, I didn't know, and I was starving because my mother didn't have food. I left to cook quick. So you better learn. Anything else? Whatever, what you like to do?
Oh, probably some jerk chicken and jollof.
Jollof. Okay. Jamaican style. Yeah. What do you like? Rice and all. That's it. Say that now. What do you like to eat? Saltfish. Yeah. Very nice. My dad did the best saltfish cake at Easter. Yes.
Proper jollof rice.
I wasn't going to go there. Because, you know, is it Ghanaian? Is it Nigerian? Is it Jamaican? Yeah. You see how a fight starts up? With a proper jollof rice. Okay. Alright, Jack me.
Fried fish.
Fried fish.
Oh, nice.
Grilled snapper with stuffed calories.
Oh! Everybody wants this. Do you do it?
Now you see.
You do it.
My wife does it.
Your wife does it?
Better.
Better? Oh, better. I like that.
Because I can make the oxtail.
Okay, Marge.
Proper Jamaican rundown.
Proper Jamaican rundown. Okay. Proper Jamaican rundown. I like that. I like that. Third land. Alright, so Ghanaian, Nigerian. And what would you like? What's your favorite? What was that? Chili filet. Oh. And gentlemen,
I would say pepper pot, a good pepper pot.
a good pepper pot. A very good. That's Guyana's national dish. A good. You know, when I went to Guyana for the first time, I had the real pepper pot. And it blew my mind because my mum always made it. She diluted it. She never made it a pot. And when I just ate it, it was nice though, and I was sweating up trying to eat it. Owen,
I'll go for the jello.
you go for the jello. Jello. Well, back to the story, and that thing, oh my goodness, he had to have that food. So he went to the pot, he took it out, and he remembered the word boil, pot, boil. It bubbled and boiled and bubbled and gave him food. Oh my, he eat so much, his belly was so full. He thought, I don't take this home for my wife and my children, maybe a neighbor or two. We can have a party, we can eat and eat and eat. So he puts it on his back and he's walking down the road, happy as can be. Oh, he felt so good, man. Thinking of all the food he wanted to eat. But then, the pot seemed to change. It got heavy. And heavier still. And so heavy that pot, yeah, he took one step and then he broke it. He took another step, back down. He was crying on his belly. He got home. His children came running. Daddy, what's wrong? What's up on your back? My children, get help me, please. They pulled him, pulled the pot out, moved. His wife came out. She was amazed. What's wrong with you? What is wrong with your face? Just let them know that. Why did you do so much noise in the yard? Wow. What's wrong, husband? My good wife, I can work in this come to? Go and get my cousin. The cousin came running, and when he did the pot, he said, oh, Lord, how come you got that? You know how I got it. Don't get it off me. It's not mine. What do you mean it's not yours? I borrow it. Borrow it from who? The wise old woman. Oh, now can you all give me a dun dun dun? Dun dun dun. These are dramatic puppets. Because nobody ever borrow anything from the wise old woman. You have to ask her first, but you know, nobody will ask you. So when she came, because she was set home, she scared and she folds your arms like so. I fold your arms, please. Fold your arms like so. And she looking and Nancy with one beady eye like so. Beady eye. And another beady eye like so. And she wipes your finger like so. Yes, that's good wiping and beady eyes. And so she said, how come you got my father and this side? Oh, my I didn't know it was your father, didn't know. Please, get it up. No, she said. I have to punish you. Oh, don't punish me. I didn't know it was yours. Please, please. Begs my heart. She said, all right. If you can answer my riddle, I will remove the puffer. If you can't, you have to serve me for the rest of your day. Much choices, all right. I tried to answer your riddle. What is it? All right. Listen carefully. Ready there. Ready that. What is sweet water that stands firm? Sorry, Matthew had no idea. Anybody here know what is sweet water that stands firm? Coconut. No, wait, hold on a minute. Not coconut. But you know, you have to, yeah, please. Don't say your answer so quick. Because we have to have dramatic tension and build up.
That's what I'm whispering it.
That's why I know I can see you whisper it, but I don't want you to know it to say it yet.
Alright.
And you say coconut. No, sorry, not coconut. All right, I see there's somebody. All right, yeah, you always have one. You're supposed to build up. But the answer to the riddle is, say it, sister.
Sugar cane.
Sugar cane. And that's it, no, but the wind did, and the wind did it, and really like that. And I said true again, the pot comes off his back, no one said, oh, the pot. And that's always the cheeky one, always the brazen one. Said, excuse me, before you go, can I have a bit more food? No, she said, learn to cook food. And that is why we all have to cook food. Now I know that pot is out there somewhere, so if you ever find it, will you let me know? And not only does it do cooking, it does the washing up. Why are men sorry?
Once there was a king. The king was very powerful. The king was so powerful that the king, like every king and every queen, has their advisors. The king advisors would sit and advise for the king. But what the king couldn't understand was, I am king, why do I listen to advisors for? I can do as much please. They're telling me and giving me advice when I really am the king and I can do as I please. Why should I have to listen to their advice? You and I know that every king or queen needs good advice. But he, like anyone, you know, they wanted power. And they couldn't understand, if he has power because he is king, why does he need advisors? The king thought about this for a long time. And he thought to himself, you know what? Their children are just as ambitious as they are for position. So he called the advisors' children to his estate. And he spoke in their ears, saying, you are the children to my advisors. I have brought you here amongst me. Why do you wait for your inheritance? Why do you wait for your mother and father to say that they will fund you for your education? Don't you wish to have power now? And the children thought to themselves, yeah, we want power. We are young. We have energy. And the king said, I'm your king. And nothing shall befall you. No harm will come to you. In fact, if you were to take the life of your elders, I may give you their position. And then with their position and you in office, you can do as you please. I mean, I'm just saying this if it was to happen, but I am your king and nothing shall befall you. What say you? And the young ones, they thought to themselves, yeah, why should we have someone telling us when to go to sleep, when to wake up, who to play with, when to have pocket money, when not to have pocket money? We are young and we want power. So they said to the king, yes, we're young and we want the position of our elders. So said the king, if you come before me and do away with your elders, I will give you their position. Crick! Crick! The young ones, they went away. They discussed with each other. They said, will you do the deed? Yes, we will do the deed. How we know the deed will be done? You will bring your blade. And on your blade will have the blood of your parents. There, then we will know that all have done the deed. And so it was. They all retired and went to their homes. That evening, who in their homestead done the deed was done. One young man, his father comes home every day. He comes home from the road, from the business with the king, advising. He asks for a calabash to be brought. He washes his feet from the dirt of the road. He washes his hands from the dirt of the papers. And he sits there ready to eat. His son always comes with a calabash to give him to wash his feet and hands and then to present the food. But when the son came into the house, the bowl, it moved. The son, his heart was pushing against his chest. The father sat there and the father did not turn to look at the son. The father just said, do what you have to do. Do it quickly and spare me any pain. The son, the bowl was almost going to drop out of his hands. He heard what his father said. He said to himself, how does my father know what is in my heart? The father sat there. He did not move. He did not look at his son. But he said once again, son, do what you must do. Do it quickly and spare me any pain. The son, he was so wrought with worry that he dropped the bowl of calabash. The water, he went before his father on hand and knees. He said, Father, if you only knew what I was about to do to you. And the father looked at his son and said, son, why do you look so distressed? And the son said, Father, the king, he gave all of us young ones the pleasure of power. And all of us thought to ourselves that we shall do the deed. We are the children of the advisors, and the king will give us your position if we were to take your life and have your position. And the father said to the son, wow, then what shall we do? And the son said, Father, I cannot make you stay here, because if you stay here and the king knows you are here, our life is at an end. Oh, says the father, I've learned something today. I am your son, and you are my father. Tell me, what shall we do? And the son says, Father, I know up in the mountains there is a cave. I will take you to the cave, I will hide you in the cave, and I will bring you provisions to sustain you with water and with food. And the son took his father up into the mountains, into a cave. And the son was coming down from the mountain. He saw a rabbit leaping and jumping. He cut the rabbit and he left the blood on the blade to dry. The next day, they all came before the king. And the king said to them, has the deed been done? And all the young ones, they held up their blade and they showed their blade with the blood crusted. And the king said, then you have done it. And now you have power. And now you have power, you have control. And what will you do with your power? And the young one said, we shall make this village great. And they went out. And they started to make areas where there was the blacksmiths. And areas where there was the silversmiths. And areas where there was the tanners. And areas where there was the jewelry, gold makers, and before you know, within the kingdom, they had their quarters. And the young ones would go to the king and give the king advice. How we shall irrigate the land, how we shall make creches for mothers and children. But the king was like, you know what? These young ones, they're worse than the parents. Now they're coming with all these ideas. I thought I will have autonomy and power to do as I please. But now they give me plans and designs. The king thought, how do I get rid of them? The same way I got rid of their parents. Ah, said the king, I will give them a task. And if they cannot complete my task, then they shall lose their lives. So he called them all together once again. Said, all of your ideas are great. All of your ideas are wonderful. I want to build a building to house all of your knowledge. And the young ones, they said, this is good. Yes, we will have such a place. We will build such a place. Yes, he said. All of your knowledge will be in this house, and this house shall be known all around the world, all around Africa. Everyone will come to see and learn and sit in this house of knowledge. And the young ones, they said, yes, this is what we want to do. This is fantastic. And the king said, the thing that shall make this house most unique is it must be built from the top down. You must start to build this building from the top, and then you must work your way down. And the young ones, they held their head and they said, but king, a building has never been built starting from the top and working down. Where is the foundation? And the king said, I am not your advisor. You are my advisors. And if you cannot advise me, then all your lives shall be forfeit. And the young ones, they held their head and they said, without the knowledge of our elders, how can we move forward? What have we done? And they went to their places to live. And they tried to think of ideas and constructions of how to build a building, starting from the top and working their way down. The king had given them all 7 days. By the end of 7 days, heads will roll. Each and every day that passed, the young man, he did not sleep, he did not eat. He went up into the mountains. He gave his father the provision of water and food. His father asked his son, son, why does your eyes sink back in your head? Why does the flesh on your body fall? Why have you lost so much weight? And the son broke down before the father, saying, Father, the king has asked us an impossible task. What, says the father? The king has asked us to build a building starting from the top and working all the way down, and it cannot be done. And the father threw back his head and laughed. The building can be done, said the father. There is a saying in Africa, a proverb which says, what an elder can see sitting down, a younger person cannot see standing up. Listen, says the father to the son, and whispers. And the son, of course, father, of course. They embrace and they go back down. Well, he goes, the son goes back down and leaves the father in the cave. And the son, he drew up his plans and he made his calculations, and that was the 7th day. All the young ones went before the king with their parchments rolled up underneath their arms, with their easels, with their squares, with their measures, with their strings, with their knots, and they went before the king and they said, King, the building can be built. We will plant 4 trees, maybe wait 10 years for the trees to grow up. No, said the king, I'm not waiting 10 years. Scrap the idea. Another one said, King, we will kill plenty cows. We will stitch all their stomachs, making a big balloon. I know, said, I don't want the mess. Can you imagine the mess? No, I don't want that. The king wanted heads to roll. But then the young man came forward and he said, King, your name shall live on forevermore. Your family's name will live on forevermore. The sun shall shine your name. The moon will shine your name. And the young man made the king feel so full of his own self-worth and ego that the king said, yes, yes, yes. How will the building be built? And the young man said, you are king. You must lay the headstone. You must lay the cornerstone. You must lay the stone that makes the building a royal building. Without you laying and breaking the ground or the sky, it cannot be built. Hey, said the king, how do you know this knowledge? And the young man said, my father, he had a very good storyteller and teacher. Her name was Sandra Agar, long, long time ago. And she had a saying, what an elder can see sitting down, a younger person can never see standing up. And so it is. And the king said, then fetch for me your father. Fetch for me your father and bring him here. And the young man said, my father, he is up there in the mountains. I could not kill him. I could not take his life. And that is where he is. The young man, he went up into the mountains. He brought his father down before the king. He stood before the king, and the king looked at the old man and said, old man, did you teach your son all this wisdom, all these stories, all these songs, all these proverbs? And the old man said, yes. In my tradition, when I was young, we lived by proverbs. We lived by tradition. What an elder can see sitting down, a younger person cannot see standing up. And I could see what my son couldn't. And the king realized his folly. And when he realized his folly, when he realized his eager for power, when he realized what he had done, he said to the old man, I will reinstate you as my griot. I will reinstate you as my mouthpiece, and you shall sit as my top advisor. And from this day, all these young children, they will go to school. And that school, long time ago, that university of schools was in Mali, Timbuktu, not mythical, but a reality. The university of all the scholars from Celtic to Greek to Egyptian to Arabic and beyond. I was coming with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end for your presence. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Sandra Ada. If you would like a book, please try to buy a book. You know how we writers need to eat. Ladies and gentlemen, on bass, Owen. And I would like to thank the Camden Library Service for hosting us. We will be at Holborn Library on the 1st of December with a storyteller named Janeri and myself and Owen. My name is Duke, and thank you very much. There as well, there's some CDs there. Thank you very much, thank you very much. There's some CDs there and some books there. They're all £5, but please stay, have a quick chat. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.